let's also do a caveat here to say, yes, there are immoral companies, there are inappropriate companies, there are immoral and inappropriate and bad leaders, there are terrible and nasty customers, there are all those things. So let's take those out of the equation. Good morning to everyone. Michael Sherlock here with Shock Your Potential and also Kukwa Biz. And I'm talking this morning about a subject that's going to be a little controversial. Let's just see if we can mix this up a little bit today, because I'm asking a question. And my question is, what does it truly mean to be committed to the company that you work for? What does that mean for not just that company, your image, but also a little bit about what it means for your career? And I hope actually to stir some things up, because I know I'm going to get people going, but Michael, you don't understand. There's times when, it really is important to vent about your company. It's also time sometimes to be honest with companies that aren't good, or, that might have some bad intent or have some bad actors. And okay, I get you. But I'm going to ask you to just put some of those yeah buts aside for right now and listen to the dialogue. And at times it's going to make you a little uncomfortable. In fact, one thing that was kind of funny is, as I was putting together my notes for this yesterday, I put out a LinkedIn poll and I asked everybody, have you ever complained in public about your job, your coworkers, your colleagues, your boss? Even if you thought it was a private conversation and no one could possibly overhear you, because we know unless you're just sitting in a box, people are going to hear you. So the interesting results, have been fun to watch, because most people are saying, yeah, I got to admit I have. Some people are like, maybe, I think I have. I'm not really sure. A very small percentage, and actually a little bit larger than I thought, of people say, no, absolutely not. And others are like, I don't know, or maybe sometimes, but I really try to avoid it. So there's a reason, there's a method to this madness. There's a reason for my question. And my question comes down to this. If we are people that are likely to complain about our jobs, our companies, our colleagues, our coworkers in public, do we really understand the repercussions that can have to our careers? And I don't mean by just saying something stupid in public that might come back to bite you. I mean something a little deeper. And let me go into this. Now, let me tell you a story first. Let me go back a few decades. We had a really good friend of our family who was a television news anchor. I really valued this man. I loved watching him on TV. I was very inspired by him. He could deliver the news in a way that made you feel kind of safe and secure. And I really enjoyed the fact that I got to also know him on a personal level. He would spend time at our lake cabin. He was friends with, especially one of my brothers. And at one point in time, after I got done being in awe of him, because he was like, you're famous, you're on TV. Because, if you're on TV, you're famous, which I've been on TV, so I guess I'm famous. But regardless, I was at a crisis of faith in my career. And let me give you a little, reason why. Because I had gone to school to become a teacher. And, when you get a degree in something, you expect that you're going to have an entire career in that. And you kind of think you know what your career is going to be. And it wasn't turning out that way, because there were not enough teaching positions in my hometown at that time. And I had to figure out something else to do. I couldn't move away. And I remember thinking, maybe, just maybe, I might want to go into television. I didn't know at that time that most people who went into television actually got degrees in, broadcast journalism or communications. Wasn't a requirement, but it was an important thing. But I said to him, do you think maybe that could be a great career for me? Maybe I should get into television and get into news broadcasting. And he took a moment and he just kind of stopped, and he was really quiet for a second, and he said, Michael, I just want to give you a little information. And he said this. He goes, you would do great. You would do really well. Here, I'd like to tell you why you may want to consider this, maybe not as your career. And he was very diplomatic. And he said, here's the thing, there's long hours. It's a really dog eat dog world. People are brutal with each other on the way up. And it's really challenging. And it's not necessarily a very lucrative career. You do better if you hit the anchor desk, but there's certain things that I want you to know. And, as he talked to me, all of these visions of this glamorous job in news broadcasting were broken away. Like they all just became little pieces. And I remember looking at him and saying, wow, I really thought you loved your job, but maybe you don't. And I remember he said, here's the thing, I actually really do enjoy my job. But there's a reality. For everything that you love about your job, there's also things that you realize. Maybe you don't like them, maybe you hate them, or maybe you realize and recognize that they aren't the best, but that you're willing to put up with them because of the benefits of the job or the opportunities therein. And he said, and here's the key though, is because I then said to him, you'd never know from watching you on TV that these are things you don't like about your job. And he said, it's important to me to respect who signs my paycheck. Listen to that. It's important to me to respect who signs my paycheck. Now, I was young and stupid then, and I didn't recognize the power of those words, but they've come to me to mean something different today, especially as my career developed and I started leading people and managing people, and when I became an owner of my own business. And it became very vital to me that I recognize that statement. It's important to me to respect who signs my paycheck. Now, let me tell you another story. Just a few weeks ago, I was traveling for business, and it was so wonderful to travel for business again. I had missed it so much. And here I was in my favorite hotel chain, sitting at the bar having dinner. And let me just tell you why I sit at the bar when I'm having dinner when I travel on business. It's because I'm a firm believer that when there's just one of me, I don't want to take up a table for a server where that server could have two or more people and get a bigger tip. Number two, when you travel for business, it can be lonely. And so by sitting at the bar and eating, you can be around people, you can choose to socialize or not. But there's a downside to sitting at the bar when you're traveling for any reason. And that is this, is that other business travelers will often be engaging with each other or with complete strangers, lamenting about the woes of their jobs. So they use that time to complain about their jobs, their boss, their coworkers, their customers. And those things have become sort of a social experiment for me over the decades. Let's just put that out there. So here I am sitting at a hotel bar, my favorite hotel chain, and I'm sitting at the bar listening to three women who are flight attendants. And they are not only complaining about their jobs and their company and their passengers, but they are doing so loudly so that everyone in this whole space can hear them. Oh, man, I'll tell you, first of all, it was a little uncomfortable. Number one, because they were a little loud. Number two, because they worked for my very favorite airline, the one that I have literally flown more than 1 million miles with. And I get it. It's sometimes it's nice to commiserate and talk about the woes. And granted, in this world today, some of the things they were talking about their passengers, I completely understand what they're talking about. We are dealing with some crazy people who are being inappropriate and uncontrollable on airplanes. So I don't take away from their frustration of those elements of their job. But it did teach me and was another reminder to me of what we say in public can be heard and does have an impact. And we'll get back to that in just a little bit. Now, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that I have never complained about a job, a boss, a colleague, a co-worker, or a customer in public, because that would be a lie. But the last few years, few decades, let's go to decades, I have really made it a high priority to not. And not just because I don't want to get caught ever having somebody listen to me, record me, or say, hey, I know you, I've seen you, and I can't believe you talk and teach about customer service and good leadership, and here you are complaining about people in your own company or anybody else. But because I know that there's a negative effect that happens to me personally and that I see in other people when they engage in this. Now, let's also do a caveat here to say, yes, there are immoral companies, there are inappropriate companies, there are immoral and inappropriate and bad leaders, there are terrible and nasty customers, there are all those things. So let's take those out of the equation. Let's remove the, yes, this company is doing bad, bad, bad things. Let's take out the people that are, causing a lot of horrible grief and carnage as leaders in companies. And let's focus on good businesses that are trying to make it, that are hoping that they have good people that support them. Now, I used to always say to my team when I was managing hundreds and hundreds of people, my goal is to make our jobs so fun because we do something so important. This is before I owned my own business. I still believe the same thing, but I love saying this to hundreds of people because they'd all look at me like I'm insane. And I'd say, let's create the culture that every single person who works here cannot wait to jump out of bed. They are that excited about their job, what we do in this world, and how to serve our customers that they cannot wait to get to work and get at it. And they're all like, yeah, whatever, Sherlock. I don't know what you're smoking this morning, but that's just not going to happen. And I always like to say, just because you don't think it's possible doesn't mean it's not probable. In fact, if you think about why people begin businesses to start with, or maybe you are your own business owner, you're an entrepreneur and you're starting this and you're about to hire people, or maybe you have hired people, and you want them to have that same excitement that you have for your vision. Maybe you just lead an organization and you want your team to be that committed, but they're not. Or maybe you're not sure that they are. So how do we do that? How do we get people to that level of excitement? How do we get ourselves to that level of excitement that we make a difference? So here's my I guess my 2 cents on this that's actually going to be worth like $1.40. And that is, number one, we have to reflect. You know, that mirror, I'm always talking about the mirror. I got the hand, I pretend it's a mirror and I look at it and I ask myself, if I'm an employee and I am not excited about what I'm doing, I find myself complaining about my boss, my colleague, my business, my company, my coworker, my customer. The first thing I have to ask myself is that the reality? And if so, we're going to talk about that. Is that the reality? And if so, one thing. If not, what do I need to look at with me? How do I need to reflect for myself? How do I need to operate differently? How do I need to get myself more motivated? What do I need to do to be a better team player, to be a better employee, to be a better leader? How can I make that difference if I'm part of the problem? Now, if the answer is, look, this company sucks and I've tried everything I can do and there's nothing I can do, then leave. There's never been a better time in this world to find another job that you feel great about. And if the first answer is honest, it's the company and you can't change it, then leave. If it's the boss and you can't change it, maybe there's still ways you can impact or help impact before you leave, but then leave. I mean, really, honestly. We're going through what we call the Great Resignation. The important part of that is not just to job hop, but to make good decisions for our careers that we feel good about. But now let's go back to that reflection. If I'm looking in that reflection and I say, okay, you know what? I don't think I can change this environment. I can't change my boss. But I want to make sure that wherever I go next, I don't carry the baggage that I'm carrying right now. I'm not going to feel less. I'm not going to feel frustrated. I'm not going to feel like I can't communicate. I'm going to go into my next situation and I'm going to do it learning from where I've come from. I'm going to take some of these learnings and move them forward. That's when we have great growth. And as we ask ourselves that question, then I ask you, if you're going to stay, ask yourself this. If I'm going to stay, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of my manager and I'm going to ask myself, what would I pay myself? How would I compensate myself? How would I develop myself? And I want you to be honest, because it's real easy to say, I'm so awesome. I got passed up for that promotion. They don't know what they're missing. But there's something in there, and those things may be true, but there's still something in there that you can develop, that you can do better, that you have control over, that will make you better. The other part of that is, how would I rate myself in my ability to navigate tough situations, disappointments, getting passed over for that promotion, not getting a raise when I expect it, not getting recognition when I expect it. How am I able to navigate those disappointments? And the last question I want you to ask yourself is, how do I support my colleagues? Not just my boss and making them happy, but how do I support my colleagues, my coworkers? How do I help them to be better, them to be grounded, them to have success in our organization when we're trying to achieve our missions? Now, why am I going into this today? Because I think it's a foundation piece. We have the opportunity every day to choose our attitude. And again, I'm telling you, I understand there's some bad actors out there, there's some bad companies, but most business owners and most business managers and leaders do not wake up in the morning and go, today's the day I'm going to screw over everybody. Today's the day I'm going to make my company make everybody miserable. Today's the day I'm going to make sure that everybody who works for me hates their job. Let's be real. People don't do that. Good people don't do that. So if we instead, before we get pulled into that drama, that dialogue, stop and ask, before I complain, before I get pulled into something that brings me down, can I look at it from the perspective of maybe this company, maybe this manager, maybe my manager's manager wants to achieve something more. They want to achieve something good. They want to achieve something positive. How can I help contribute to that? That's when we take all the negative feelings or the things that happen to us or the disappointments and we turn them around completely and they become positives for us. So as we ask ourselves these questions, I also want to remind you of the statement that my friend said to me. I respect the company that signs my paycheck. I want to show respect to the company that signs my paycheck. By doing that, we also show respect for ourselves. Now, let me take this full circle one more time. As I was listening to the flight attendants in my favorite hotel chain at the hotel bar having dinner complain about my favorite airline chain, I wondered how many of these people really, of those three women, really believe that day after day. And if they do, how painful is that to go to work every day and not be happy? But if they're not unhappy all the time, what damage does it do to complain with others and commiserate? Every once in a while, I get it. We have to decompress, and there's things that make us crazy. But the level of their complaints and commiseration got more and more agitated, more and more volatile. Because when people get together and emotions arise, positive or negative, we can flow to the area where the emotions are strongest. When they walk away from that, do you think out of those three women that every single one of them went back to their room that night and got up the next morning to go get on another plane and said, I feel great about this? Or did they say, oh, talking to those people reminded me how much I don't like what I'm doing? And what does that do for the next interaction with that passenger? What does that do for the next time they interact with their boss, or the next time they're up for a promotion, or they're just considering the trajectory of their career? We can hurt ourselves in ways we don't recognize, especially when it's easier sometimes to blame the other person, the other company. And I don't say we need to blame ourselves. I'm talking about making sure we step back long enough to ask ourselves, is this really where I want my focus to be? Positive focus will lead positive results. Negative focus will always lead to more negative views and thoughts. So, as I leave, one last thought for you is growing and building your own business has a lot of ownership. When you own your own business, it is your baby, it is your child, it is your dream, it is your vision. You want the people who work with you and for you to support that. Whether you own your own business or not, look at your job as if you own it. How would you want others to treat you, support you, be a benefit to you? How would you want them to help further what you can accomplish? And ask yourself this: am I building it? Am I growing it with a strong foundation? Or am I undermining it with sometimes the way that our complaints can pull us out from underneath us? The rug goes right away, and we're left sitting on the floor, wondered what happened. I'm hoping to motivate you instead to clean that floor up a little bit, take a new world view, and see how you can wake up tomorrow and say, I can't wait to tackle this day, build for myself, my own company, my own job, build for somebody else's future. And whether it's me signing my own paycheck or somebody else, showing them the respect for what they do to help you achieve your goals. That's what I'm talking about this week. That's what's motivating me. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure today. Remember to check out more of what we do at shockyourpotential.com. If you're interested in a couple of my books, I always say, make sure to check them out. And hope you're having a fantastic start to this incredible new opportunity.